What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Also, I co-host and co-produce the only online conversation for dads and fathers around the world. That's co-sponsored by Dove Men Care and also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And through that collaboration with those two organizations, I was part of a team that reached out to over 100,000 fathers around the world last year. And as always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Welcome that media star they call Ryan Knight.
In process, not there yet, but I'm a dedicated student, but always good to see you, Dr. Vibe. Shout out to everyone joining us live. For those that don't know me, my name is Ryan Knight, one of the co-founders of the Afro-Caribbean Business Network, also one of the co-executive directors. Shout out to my counterpart, Nicola Harris. We work with entrepreneurs of African and Caribbean heritage, really to figure out what stage they're in today and help them create a blueprint to grow their companies exponentially. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I run a company called Detailing Nights that provides mobile waterless car cleaning. So we come to your house, your office, clean your car on the spot without using water, and our plant-based eco-friendly cleaning supplies. We are in the process of hiring. So this month we need to hire at least 5. So I want to push it to 10, but I know we're looking for 5 specifically. So if you know somebody that had a hard time getting a job last summer, or hey, is in between school and sitting around still looking for a job, please send them to us. We'd love to, 1, get them employed, and 2, get them introduced to entrepreneurship. We kind of do both at the same time.
Excellent. Good morning. Christopher Lawrence saying hi, Dr. Vibe and Ryan. Hi to you back.
Solid.
Hi to everyone who's watching this live or watching on replay. We appreciate you and we bless you. And a lot of things going on, but how was the weekend?
The weekend was, what else happened this weekend?
You got your passport. You got a passport yesterday.
Well, customs, I have a Nexus card, so I was able to come across the Yonge Street border. But shout out to Tim Frey and Christopher Lawrence. We were able to meet in person and have a discussion.
You didn't tell me Lawrence was part of the trial. What?
Hey, I told you to stop by.
Well, you got to tell, especially on Sundays, you got to tell me ahead of time because I got Black Canada talking.
Yes.
So you got to tell me ahead of time.
And that conversation was awesome. So looking forward to part 2. Like you said, 3, 4, and 5. Just ongoing. If you can turn that into a monthly conversation, I could see, because there's a lot of info and of course a lot of experts. So
you're talking about the conversation about the Black mental health week. That was wow. and people may not realize when you host something like that, when you have so many great individuals who have so much knowledge, you can only ask them like 1 or 2 questions and the hour goes by like bam.
Exactly. Everybody gives 2 answers and it's like time's done.
Yeah, but it's just done. But it was
so still done very well though. I thought everybody got.
Well, thank you. No, everybody who came on was really good, and a lot of them I'd never met before. So it's always good to meet new Black people who are doing really positive, productive things. I thought the conversation was was massive and really, 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 really good. And yes, folks, we are planning parts 2, 3, 4, and which leads us into this is Black Mental Health Week in the
Right.
city of Toronto. So very important focus. And it's also Women's History Month.
Right.
So
Yes.
that's going down. And not to usurp all those other things, we don't broadcast every day of the week. Hey, speaking of one day we will, but March 9th last year, what happened for the first time, Ryan?
March 9th. I don't know what happened.
Okay. So, folks, well, I guess
Oh, no, I do
oh,
know. Yes. 1 year anniversary. What am I talking about? See that?
oh.
You'll be sleeping in the doghouse already. Forget our 1 year anniversary.
No, look, I'm not your wife, so I'm not going to put you in the doghouse. All right. But yeah, folks. So we're selling very early. March 9th last year, we went on with our first edition of the Morning Vibe with a guest. And let's see if Ryan remember who the first guest was.
I do remember Station Let Frederick.
All right. There
Because I was
you go.
reminded when she came on the second time.
Yes.
During Black History Month. Yeah.
Fantastic. So definitely, folks. So thank you so much. It's been a great 1 year ride. It feels like it was just yesterday. And it's only getting better because of you and the great people who come on. So yeah, 3 momentous events. 1 year anniversary of the Morning Vibe. We've got Black Mental Health Week. Just a little plug. If you go to my platform on YouTube or Facebook, you can see the replay of yesterday's conversation. Really good. Mm-hmm. Really, 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 really good. Not a shameless plug there, but just important information that we all need to know. And Women's History Month. And I think this leads into the friend we have coming on this morning. So Ryan, I will let you introduce her.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because I got a WhatsApp message and from a friend of mine, Minerva Sandler, who issued me a challenge to record myself talking for about a minute, talking about a woman in my life that has taught me something that I've carried with.
Wow.
So it is going to be right here in this introduction because the guest that we have on, I learned so much from her. She's I consider her a friend, a mentor, but more than a mentor, I aspire to walk the path that our guest today has walked because of her consistency. She has been supporting what I've done since detailing nights. Initially was just trying to get our feet on the ground and solidified. From 2015, we were able to work together with Skills for Change when she was there. So I'm giving hints of who this might be. But ever since that, and before I met her in 2015, she had been doing the work, especially around the community and eco-friendly practices. And so now she's doing the work of really fighting for equality in the construction industry. I've seen the work that she's done on the ground and also in the boardroom. So I'm a big fan, and I'm hoping everybody else becomes a fan of her as well. Rosemary Powell is with us, the executive director of the Toronto Community Benefits Network, who was our first supporter of ACBN from when I was just thinking about it in my mind. She urged me to jump in, and I've been learning ever since of how to operate a nonprofit from this wonderful woman. So thank you so much for joining us today, Rosemary.
Well, thanks for having me, and you're doing a phenomenal job, and I'm just so proud of you. I was proud of you then when I reached out to you from, my Skills for Change days to now, and you've been a strong supporter of the community benefits movement. In fact, you were one of those people who helped us in 2020 when we did the inclusive recovery campaign and got that message out across Canada. Dr. Vibe, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm also very impressed with your work and support you wholeheartedly for getting out the message about our, into our communities.
Well, we appreciate you immensely. And I think it'd only be fair if you can share a little bit about your background to our audience, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't know about you that need to know about you.
Oh my gosh, my background. I coming from the employment services sector for the most part. I'm originally from Montreal, came to Toronto with my daughter in my car and a suitcase. And then, thought that, Toronto is the big city. I know I can move my career here. And so, since then, I've been working in employment services with organizations like the Jamaican Canadian Association and, the former microskills and of course skills for change. Just really I'm really committed to helping people towards their career goals and helping to put money back into people's pockets, right? So that's my passion. Okay. And of course I love I think it's really important that we're conscious about our impacts on the environment as well, and making sure that we're leaving a legacy for our future generation. I got a daughter, and I got to make sure that I leave the world better for her.
Two quick things, and I know Ryan I'll probably jump in as soon after I ask this. Tell us what the Toronto Community Benefits Network is all about, and how did you get involved with that organization?
Okay, well, we are a community labor coalition, and that's really important because it's core to our DNA. We are membership based. We have about 121 member organizations and groups from across the city of Toronto who are all committed to community benefits and to ensuring that there is good jobs and opportunities whenever major infrastructure projects or urban development projects are built. We have a supporter base of over 10,000 people who support community benefits across Canada, and it's growing. And, the goal is that we ensure equity, diversity, and inclusion in an industry that is heavily funded by taxpayer dollars, but has had a not so stellar track record of inclusion of diversity in their workforce and in their supply chain. So, our goal is to make sure that we change that because there's just a lot of opportunity. The construction industry contributes about 7% of Canada's GDP. So, and is heavily funded. Everything from your roads and your bridges, your hospitals, your schools, transit, like for the Metrolinx projects, which was one of the first community benefits agreement that we were able to establish here in Toronto.
And for those that don't know much about community benefits, did you want to dig a little bit deep into what CBAs and community benefit agreements?
Yeah, everybody loves community benefits now, right? It's almost become, a cliche, but it's not an abstract concept. Right. Community benefits is something that we have fought very hard for very long as a community labor coalition. It is basically about ensuring that whenever major infrastructure project is being built, that we are able to carve out good jobs and opportunities for Black and Indigenous and people of color, with a focus on women, newcomers, and youth from these communities who have been historically left out of the labor market. We look at apprenticeship jobs. So while the project is being built, we want construction jobs and apprenticeships carved out for our community members. We want to move from a 2% of the racialized population in Toronto and Ontario registered in a construction trade. We want to see professional, administrative, and technical jobs. Not everybody wants to or can be a construction worker per se, but they have amazing talents in design, architecture, project management, marketing, communications, pretty much every career could be something that is oriented to supporting the success of the construction industry. We want to make sure that there is social procurement. Social procurement meaning that purchasing from local businesses, social enterprises, and minority-owned businesses. In infrastructure, these are major projects, especially in the ICI construction industry. The Eglinton Crosstown project is $8.5 billion. There's not many small businesses that can compete for an $8.5 billion contract. But what we need to see is that those contracts are broken down so that the Black contractor can get access, so that the social enterprise that is developing and training people can get access, so that the catering companies can provide food to those workers so they can eat while they're on the job, right? So those are the kinds of things that we want to see. And Neighborhood and environmental improvements is another aspect of a community benefits agreement. We want to make sure that the project doesn't just get built so that you can ride the train. But no, we want you to be able to, in those stops and stations, in the, the land that the government buys up and then sells off when it's done, that you can get access to that maybe we can create a community recreation space. The land could be reserved for community use. We want to make sure that there's green buildings and green building concepts, and that the community can access the green spaces, around the offices that the workers on these projects, go into day in and day out. And that was 4 basic tenets of community benefits that I shared with you. Regardless of all those 4, there is one that is the most important: community voice at the table. So all of this has to be negotiated and agreed to in a written contract with the community, and where the community is at the table monitoring and tracking the process, the progress, with the contractors, the general contractor, with the client owner, with the unions who are responsible for hiring, these workers, right? It's not a abstract concept. It's really very specific. So sometimes people don't necessarily realize that. And sometimes even our partners seem not to recognize that, because Metrolinx told us that they were still going to be doing community benefits, and they were surprised that we were not very pleased with that because what they were presenting to us was not community benefits.
I want to ask, when you started your journey with TCBN, coming into that environment, what were the early days like?
Oh my gosh. I mean, the good thing about it is that there was an amazing support system. So when I came on about 5.5 years ago, the first thing that I got thrown right into was the preparations for the final negotiations for the equity hiring target on the Eglinton Crosstown project. That was the first thing. And then the second thing was the presentation to the bidders for the Finch West LRT project. And I do remember being around those tables in a room with lots of, very distinguished white men, especially, and, just being the one Black woman, in the room. But thankfully, I had support. There was, John Cartwright, who was at the time the head of the Toronto and York Region Labour Council, and who was the co-chair of the Toronto Community Benefits Network, who basically sat right next to me in that meeting and gave me strength and gave me little kicks under the table when I would put my foot in my mouth. He showed me exactly where I needed to stand, facing the Metrolinx chair of the committee, and introduced me to everyone. And it was a good experience. I think there was a lot of, just optimism and, goodwill in the room from all the stakeholders who were there. We had the Metrolinx chair, we had the Infrastructure Ontario, we had, the Ministry of Labor, we had our, continued supporters. The Atkinson Foundation, was involved at the time as well, just, putting their money where their mouth is, making sure that TCBN had the financial support to get it started. And I think, like I said, there was just a lot of optimism about, making some real change in the space. And, the only thing that was a stickler, because it took 2 years to actually negotiate, was to get a specific hiring target, and for the understanding and the click that, community benefits is all about equity, diversity, and inclusion. It's not just about the apprenticeship. Unions are very, very excited about community benefits because they want to see more, they want to support the young people and new people getting into the construction industry, because, there is a real need now. There's a skill shortage. And so, they're very excited about that. But it's not just about apprenticeship. What we want to know is how many Black and brown people are going to get those apprenticeships, right? So that's what we were focused on. So while they were excited about the apprenticeship aspect of it, we need to really double down. And I remember a really tense meeting with John Cartwright, and it just wasn't clicking, that whole concept, because they were pretty excited about, okay, you're asking for 15%? We can't go there. We were suggesting 10%, but you know what? We're going to go for 12% of apprenticeships. And that was a really tense moment. I remember John Cartwright and just our side, kind of not understanding what was going on. And John just got really kind of heated and, did a little bit of a bang on the table and said, well, we're not talking about apprenticeship. We're talking about equity here. Why can't you all get it? Wow. And the meeting stopped and everybody separated into their little, different rooms to kind of caucus and to talk. And we had a good, 1 hour maybe of, just everybody kind of calming down. Mm-hmm. And we came back into the room and then we ended up with a 10% consensus for equity hiring. And that's the key that we want to preserve.
Okay.
We need to have those targets. If we don't have those specific targets, it will not be tracked. It will not be monitored. There will be no accountability. And even though we didn't actually reach the full 10% on the Eglinton crosstown, there was some intentional efforts that went into place by the general contractor, by the unions, by the community, by the funders. A lot of work went into making sure that we did intentional efforts to recruit people from our local communities, to recruit Black youth, to support them, to get them into the pathway for the Community Benefits Project. Without any targets, without any, with just pure fluff. Why would people actually, fundraise or, put their organization's resources around, doing anything, right? So that's our concern.
And I'm curious, so you've been at this work going on 6 years. You've seen some progress made. How would you describe from when you first began, like Dr. Vi was talking about, to today? What kind of progress would you say has been made? And what
the movement has grown, Ryan. Okay. And, and again, it's thanks to people like you, Ryan, and your leadership in your own places and spaces. It's not necessarily the focus of your work like it is with TCBN. Like, it's the one thing that we do. But when you learn that there was a threat to, all of this policy work that we had done, you really stepped up, right? And you're doing your part to make sure that as a society, we uphold these basic concepts. And so I think the movement has grown. We've moved from, I think when I started, we had about 30 something members. We're now 121 member organizations and groups. We have 12 of the largest construction unions who are members. We have some of the construction unions who, really want this and are doing their best. Like, for example, we have Chris Campbell, who is our board chair, a Black man. Our community, our organization now is Black led with over 60% of the board, being Black. Right. Our management team, our staff, right, represents the full diversity that we're trying to achieve. So we're walking the talk, right? And, we have 10,000 supporters now. We have a network of pre-apprenticeship partners that are working on the ground to train and develop. We have, there's a whole ecosystem of incredible partners over in Scarborough. The Scarborough Business Association, yes. They stepped up, like, immediately as soon as Metrolink sent the letter. We had literally overnight, because they were having their board meeting on the Thursday to present their new direction. And we had like 7 community organizations already prepared letter and sent Metrolinx overnight, for their board meeting. Like community organizations don't turn around that fast.
Right.
Their systems too, right? So
and for those that, like for myself, I saw the article come out saying like, hey, Doug Ford is thinking of removing diversity hiring targets. And then there was a reversal either the next day or a couple days later.
Day after.
So can you explain to the audience what the initial article was like, why diversity hiring targets were so important, and then what needs to happen going forward? So I feel like the Ford government maybe didn't realize how entrenched community benefits are. So
I think that is exactly the case. They did not realize that there was a whole network and support system that have been working for over 12 years now to move the community benefits agenda forward. It's not just the Eglinton Crossdown or the Finch West LRT, it's the Casino Woodbine. The City of Toronto just established a community benefits framework for all their projects, $50 million and more. The government of Ontario has a community benefits policy in place, Bill 6, Infrastructure for Jobs and Prosperity Act, that says that when the government is going to be building infrastructure, they must include community benefits. The government of Canada has community employment benefits requirements, and they just required $12 billion that they are transferring to the Ontario government to have a community benefits agreement on it. And Metrolinx went ahead without having any requirements for community benefits specifically, not community benefits generally, in the contract language with the general contractors that they had already started to hire. So they basically, Metrolinx did, went to tender and selected a company, a general contractor, for a $750,000 project. Sorry, million dollar project for the Scarborough subway extension, right? And the works is already started. And we were in the background saying, hey, Metrolinx, what's going on? Hey, Metrolinx, tell us about your community benefits. Hey, Metrolinx. And they weren't responding. So that's what we raised in the letter. The idea that Metrolinx has informed us via letter that they were not going to be including the community benefits agreement in the contracts going forward. They said basically, and this is what we reported in the letter, that there will be no hiring targets specifically. They focused it on apprenticeships, not the laborers. So not what people see, the thing is, it's so complex that somebody looking at that letter just generally might have thought, oh, okay, they're doing something, right? But the thing is, every project, every urban development project that is happening must go through a planning process, right? Even if you're going to make any changes to your house, you got to get some permits. You got to make sure your neighbors are not going to complain, right? so but
they had already gone past that.
And that's not what we were talking about, right? So you looking at that letter might have said, oh, okay, yeah, they're going to include apprenticeships, but apprenticeships is just one aspect of the types of jobs that are possibly available on a construction project. Like I said, there's the professional, administrative, and technical jobs. Also, maybe you're not an apprentice, you're not a youth who is just starting out on you may be a seasoned laborer, right? Or a seasoned journey person. What about those jobs as well? Maybe you are a project manager. Those were being removed from the letter that Metrolinx had shared. The social procurement that they talked about was basically a buy local campaign. Buy local campaigns are great, but that's not the $8.5 billion you're talking about there. That's basically encouraging the patrons on the street to come into the shops and to buy, and that's not what we're talking about. When we say social procurement, it's very specific. It's about breaking down the contract, the $8.5 billion, I'm using that as an example, right? So that minority-owned businesses can compete for some of those subcontracts on the project.
Yes.
So it's very, very, very specific, but they wanted to do a buy local campaign. And remember, the community voice at the table, very, very important concept for a community benefits agreement. And this, they said they would not require the general contractor to sit at the table with the community to do the monitoring, tracking, and evaluation. So these were basically, this is basically what the letter said. It gutted everything, that we knew to be true for a community benefits agreement, but while still claiming that these were community benefits. And so, we felt an urgency to make sure that we, that people understood what was at stake, and for our government to understand that this is definitely not acceptable. So that's what we raised. And so, it's the follow-up from Ben Spur from the Toronto Star to the ministry that produced the result that came the day after, which said, no, that is not accurate. We're going to make sure that those hiring targets remain. And while we appreciate hearing that, that's just one aspect of a community benefits, but it's an important one. So we're very pleased for that, and we appreciate the government recognizing that and making sure that that continues to be a part of the community benefits agreement. But like you understand, there are other aspects that we need to understand more in depth. What does that mean? And we haven't had a chance to speak to them as yet, so they haven't reached out. We are reaching out, and we're hoping to have a meeting soon with the Ministry of Infrastructure. We do have a meeting pre-established with Metrolinx for tomorrow, and Metrolinx and the people of Metrolinx are great people. This is not about us trying to, to throw anyone under the bus or under the LRT. This is just about wanting to make sure that that same level of respect and transparency and conversation continues to happen.
Rosemary and I were talking before we went on live, and the thing that really disturbs me about this situation is the lack of respect. They were looking to change and establish an agreed upon policy that I believe is law. Correct me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. And they just usurped it. Said, doesn't matter. I think that is the thing that really concerns me, how you were just, you and your organization and a lot of people who will be impacted were just totally ignored. And that really bothers me.
Yeah, that was for us a breach of trust, and process, a breach of process as well, because, with substantial changes like this being proposed, we would have expected that we would have a conversation about it, first and come to an agreement, and then they would make announcement, not, prepare their own, new process or way forward, and then inform the community that this is the way forward. For us, that was really very disheartening, very disappointing to see that occurred. Now, we know that the community benefits requirements from, there is different levels of government involved. The government of Canada needed to communicate this to the government of Ontario. The government of Ontario would then need to let Metrolinx know that there is this requirement. I mean, everybody should know, but there is process that needs to happen, and perhaps there was some kind of a breach in the process that caused Metrolinx to go forward in this way. Without, due process with the community. I really don't want to be disingenuous and to say that, Metrolinx was deliberately trying to undercut the community, because I'm pretty sure that's not the case. We've had a really good working relationship with them for the last, 5.5 years. we want to retain that also going forward. And so, I'm hoping that this was just, a misunderstanding, and, we can kind of, put that behind us and look forward. We know that there were things, there were challenges in implementing the existing community benefits agreements on the Eglinton Crosstown project and the Finch West LRT. They might have seen that as being, bothersome, and so wanted to kind of do things differently. But that wouldn't have been our recommendation. Our recommendations have been to strengthen the community benefits program. Our recommendation would be to make sure that the subcontractors who hire more than 80% on the Eglinton Crosstown and who hire 100% of the workers on the Finch West LRT, so that's our experience, to make sure that there is a requirement for them also to participate in the community benefits program. Because where, for example, Crosslinks Transit Solutions, which is the general contractor for the Eglinton Crosstown project, where they were able to hire directly, they surpassed the 10% without any issues. In fact, on the professional, administrative, and technical side jobs of the community benefits agreement, they surpassed all expectations. We didn't even have an actual target for that, and they reached 25%. So it's doable, right? With with goodwill and good intentions and intentional efforts. But there were certain aspects of the actual the blueprint, the implementation that needed to be strengthened. Also, there is not a good cooperation with the general contractor, the subcontractor, and the unions, and maybe even the pre-apprenticeship providers who help to place people into the unions, in terms of the tracking, monitoring, and evaluation, because there's a lot of hands in the pot. And who do you get the information from, and what information do you collect, and what frequency do you collect it, and how do you share it, right? So this is something that needs to be addressed, and it's either the Ministry of Infrastructure should take up the responsibility of having a proper tracking and reporting mechanism that is transparent and accountable to the public. But that is something that is not currently in place, that needs to be rectified. So I can understand that there are challenges with the existing, but it's just you just don't take it away.
That's kind of what caught me off guard when I was seeing diversity hiring targets. Like, wasn't that step 1 5 years ago? So when we're still talking about it, I was like, somebody isn't getting the message, and that's where more pressure needs to be put on. And again, I've learned from you so much about being diplomatic and not letting my emotions get the best of me when dealing with, I'll say, mega institutions. And because I remember pressing Metrolinx and Crosslinks for data and saying, listen, where are the targets? What are the types of jobs available? And getting stonewalled. But you were always there to consistently keep building the relationship and consistently move forward. And like you said, I'm hoping that this isn't a step backwards in that relationship that you've built.
Yeah, no, I hope so too. I mean, I reminded, the last year we started our first Building Diversity Awards and Recognition Program.
Yes.
And Metrolinx, we recognized them for their leadership in being the first in all of Ontario to actually implement a formal community benefits program. Right. And we recognized Crosslinks Transit Solutions, who cooperated with them to implement the program, as well as LAUNA, the laborers local 506, that basically changed their processes and systems of hiring and dispatching in order to ensure that the community benefits program would have the support it needed to succeed, right? So there are definitely good practices that we can point to over the last 5.5 years, that if we just basically double down on those and, fill in the gaps of what's missing, we can have something incredible here. And, that just needs to be strengthened. And the idea, though, that 10% is what we had 5.5 years ago. And, the 10% was within, a day removed and then put back. Like, we were actually wanting to go back to the table to say 10% is not.
Right, that was a starting point.
It's just a starting point.
Supposed to build on that.
So when we talk to the ministry going forward, and then if they're coming with 10%, which is what we already had, 5.5 years ago. That's not progress, especially in a city like Toronto that has 50% racialized people. You want to see more of that diversity reflected in the workforce that is building infrastructure, right?
Rosemary, we have a Toronto Community Benefits question. So this is good. Christopher's asking, I'm very fond of your work, curious understanding that the trades is a great career path. What are some of the specific, quote, equity access, unquote, or pre-apprenticeship programs TCBN may be developing for racialized youth?
Yeah, so, with the community benefits commitments being in place and a policy that we can point to and that we can basically coordinate all of our efforts around, all the different stakeholders coming together. What TCBN was able to do was to basically make the case to our funders, to the same government of Ontario through the Black Youth Action Plan project, and also to the government of Canada in their Union Training and Innovation Partnership program, to basically establish pathways into construction for Black youth specifically, but also women and Indigenous and newcomers. And so TCBN supports or coordinates with our pre-apprenticeship partners, and we basically have a transfer payment agreement with the Labor Education Center, who basically facilitates our Quick Start in Construction program, which is a 160-hour apprenticeship readiness program that basically teaches the basics of the construction industry, understanding how the unions and those systems work, understanding the apprenticeship system, the different types of trades that you can get into. There is, 100 trades that you can choose from, and in construction, over 50. And so, how do you know if you want to be a carpenter or a laborer or an iron worker or an electrical worker or an operating engineer, a roofer, a sheet metal worker, right? How do you make those choices? This program will help you to be able to do that. And it prepares you for the union intake test. So to get into an apprenticeship and to be sponsored by a union, there are processes in place, and they have intake processes. And it includes making sure that you have your grade 10 maths or English, if depending on the trade, or grade 12 maths and English and mechanical aptitude, that's your physics. And they will test you for it, as well as you having to show your high school transcript. So, we teach to the math test, we teach to the English test, and we teach to the mechanical aptitude test. After you've completed your apprenticeship readiness and you're ready to be registered with a union, we support you to make sure through the Next Gen Builders Academy, which we're doing in partnership with the Afro-Canadian Contractors Association. We help you to prepare for that test. And then we also connect you with a mentor through the Next Gen Builders mentoring program. We connect everyone who's ready to get into a construction trades or a professional administrative and technical job with a mentor from the industry who can help you to navigate your career journey, who can help you when you have little issues and challenges and you're not sure what to do with it. You got somebody that you can call. And we provide a 16-session training for the mentees and an 8-session training for the mentors as well. We felt it was important that the mentors be trained, because not because you're a journey person or you're an experienced professional doesn't mean that you know how to, to communicate well with others, and to transfer your knowledge, in a way that has impact for the other. And we have a network and a support system. So every quarter we have a mixer. We bring guest speakers in from the industry to talk about, a day in the life of a carpenter, a day in the life of, and we have our annual retreat as well. Last year we went over to Niagara Falls and it was fun, right? So, there's a lot of work that happens on the ground to support all of this, happening. And TCBN was able to get in, but just by ourselves alone, our own program, we were able to get in about 360 people since just before the pandemic to now. Into construction, but also we have other organizations like Labor Education Center and their Trade Links program. They have their own stats. We have Building Up, and they have their own stats. EVA's initiative, they have their own stats. The TNO, Toronto Neighborhood Organization out in Scarborough, they have their own stats, right? Keep Six, they're not a full-fledged organization per se, but Richard is just incredible. He goes out there every day and he's just he's a constructor, and he pulls people in, right, to the industry. And of course the unions do their own training and have their own stats as well. This is an industry that is going to need 500,000 workers.
Wow.
They need skilled workers. So they know they have to train and develop people to get into those jobs.
So it leads me into this conversation piece with you. What does the Black environment need to do going forward to really make sure that we represent and not only have our chair at the table, but we also have our own table?
Well, we were already contemplating all of that, right? ACA, the Afro-Canadian Contractors Association, was an essential organization to establish. Like, how can you, in today's day, have the first ever Black Contractor Association in all of Canada just being established? What was the support system for those Black contractors prior to that? If we're not in the industry, you can just have a sense as to why we don't have, Black youth in those systems, because you need those Black contractors to hire us.
Rosemary, Can I just politely interrupt you? I'm going to share a little bit of an interesting story, and maybe someone that TCBN may want to reach out to. Many years ago, when I first started off this journey, I was introduced to a gentleman. His name is Duncan Vanali. And at that time, he lived in Etobicoke and had never met the man before. And we sat down at his dinner table, and his father was Italian. His mother was Black. When he was growing up, his father was an electrician. And this is like 1950s Toronto. So he followed his father's footsteps. And he was the first Black person in his
union. I need to meet Duncan.
Yeah, and he was the only Black person in his union for about 20 years.
What? Reminds me of Tubbs.
Right? And so when you're saying this, and it's funny because his name came up in a conversation recently with somebody. I'm going to reach out to him and see. I think it would be really good to have him share some of his story. Like, he has other things, like he's like a 10th degree black belt. He represented Canada. Yeah, he represented Canada in the Tokyo Olympics. I think he probably still teaches judo. I mean, he's probably retired now, but that story that he shared, and I remember asking, like, how did you survive being the only black man, like the 1950s, 1960s, like 1960s, 70s, being the only black man in a trade union?
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be really good to. I'm just thinking maybe getting the history of blacks in trade.
That would be amazing. We really need to record, because it's almost as if our history has been erased.
Yes.
Our blood, sweat, and tears built Canada.
Yes.
Right?
And still is.
And still is. Right? And we don't get recognized for that. That's why during Black History Month, one of the things that, we've been doing consistently now for the last 2 years is just every day we just try to post Just a story, a face and a little bio of, our, Black leaders in construction, and let's highlight the Black excellence, in our community. Today's, leaders will be, the face of tomorrow's history.
Thank you for allowing me to share. I'm going to reach out to him and see if he'd be open to speaking with you, because I think that'd be really, really important to get that sense of history of our people and how much, and we just didn't show up. We've been there for a while.
Yes,
absolutely.
No more questions coming in. Hold on, like Rosemary, I'm glad you have a few more minutes. Christopher says, with a lot of seasoned construction workers getting ready to retire, what strategies can you share to engage youth, letting them know the construction industry is a very lucrative career path to hip hop into or onto? I like that. Hip hop into or onto. I like the way that was put. Good question. Your answer?
Well, what we need to do is to really get the message out into our community, just making sure that there is representation. Representation matters. So you want to show them their, Black fathers and uncles and aunties and in the industry, wearing their hard hats and their boots, standing up, in front of the construction project that they're working on or they're just finishing, and really do a proper, strong marketing into our community. We need to make sure that we're going into the schools and talking to our young girls and boys early about the opportunities in front of them. Let them know that these are good, like he said, lucrative positions. These are good jobs, especially in the ICI construction, which is where we mainly work. These are unionized jobs for the most part. Even those that are not unionized, they're also good paying jobs. But let's talk about the unions. You get in and you're already starting right out of high school without any other experience, making $22.50 an hour, making, or $26 an hour, depending on the trade that you use. Year over year, as you move forward and gain more experience and gain the theory, and you're moving towards your Red Seal apprenticeship, which, by the way, once you get it, you can work anywhere in Canada, with it, right, as a journey person. You never have to go back to your employer to ask for a raise, because it's a guaranteed raise every year, as long as you complete these numbers of hours and you document it with, skills on Skill Trades Ontario, the new College of Trades. You will be able to get an increase in your salary.
Wonderful.
Pension benefits comes along with it, right? So, and of course you have your skill where you can also be somebody who is, renovating your home, your own house,
Yes.
Yeah.
and it's a transferable skills across Canada once you get to your Red Seal apprenticeship. So I'm talking about, these are good jobs.
Good stuff. Ryan, any final words for Rosemary before we let her leave? Because I know she never has a quiet day.
Yes. Things developing all the time. Well, one, of course, wanted to say thank you. You're an inspiration to me. I love what you're doing and always here to support you in any way we can. So now the question is, anybody that does want to get involved or support the work, how can they get a hold of you, or what are you looking for in the arena of support from the community?
Okay, go to communitybenefits.ca and sign up as a supporter, and we will always be sending you our newsletters, our email blasts, so that you can stay on top of what's going on. But also, what would be really amazing is in your own constituency, in your local community, reach out to your elected politicians and ask for a meeting with them and invite TCBN to go along with you. If you want to go alone, that's fine too. We will help you to prepare just the briefing notes so that you could share with your elected representatives, whether it be municipal, provincial, or federal, about what's at stake and, how important you feel this is to your community.
Okay. Well, before we let you go, some of our audience is sharing your love. So Christopher saying, keep up the great brand work, Rosemary.
Thank you,
Um,
Christopher.
Liquid Green Profits. I love this.
Green. Oh,
Love
yes.
her style. Behind that smile is a stern diplomatic approach and an in-depth understanding of the many layers of political garbage. Thank you, sister.
Yes.
And then Macmillan Group, good morning, everyone. Thank you for your tireless work. Rosemary, skilled trades are a great career opportunity for our community youth. Not promoted enough. It is great to see your initiatives.
Thank you.
Love
Well,
that.
we thank you for taking the time. Please keep us up to date and what you're doing. And congratulations to you and your organization for what you have done, what you are doing, and what you will be doing. You always have a home here. So, and anytime you want to come in and share with us, the mic and screen is yours.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Take
Thank you
care
so much.
now.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Sweet, sweet.
Excellent. That was a beautiful conversation. And thank you, audience, especially the live audience, for your support, because without all of you or y'all, we wouldn't be doing this. This is good stuff.
So true.
Very much. And Dr. Taji saying this was a great show. It's a great conversation. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Much appreciated.
What else is going on for the rest of the week, Ryan?
So we are onboarding a couple hirees, one video editor. Shout out to Malachi, should be starting today. We're actually having an intern that's doing our mental health community outreach. So shout out to Saunders. And yeah, the team is growing. So we're going to see how we can have more impact.
More positive impact.
That's it. Yes.
Absolutely. Fantastic. And hear that, folks? Interns, the internships are out there.
How's your week looking?
I have 3 interns right now doing audio video editing for me, and they're leaving next month. So I'm already interviewing for the summer, because one of my visions was that not do, any audio video editing for at least 8 months this year. I get my time back to work another. Yeah, well, it's half of it's already done. So we're working on the second half. But and put it out there. If anyone wants to get in contact with me in regards to interns or anything like that, their contact information is there. Web, email, Facebook, Instagram. Forgot to put up Twitter, but that's all right. Next time. So that is all that. So onboarding people, how is the mental health initiative going?
Yeah, it's actually picking up a lot more steam than I anticipated. People feeling really are comfortable with reaching out just to say, hey, joining the event or wanting to talk to somebody. So yeah, it typically wasn't our focus, but now it's definitely needed. So we're going to keep expanding it.
Excellent. Well, folks, we will see you 9 a.m. on Friday. And actually, we have our next guest. And in line of being at Women's History Month and Black Mental Health Week, we have Nicole Waldron, who is a mental health advocate. She has so many hats that she wears. She's an event planner. She's a mental health advocate. She actually sits on a co-op board, and also I was gonna say the company, but I don't want to get it wrong. But she's sits on a board of a major Canadian company. Okay. But I can't remember it, so I'm not going to misquote it. So I'll leave it at that. So we're back on Friday. Hope everyone has a great week. As always, I'll close off with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions. Then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And remember to give yourselves grace. And also on Friday, I'll do a little self-promotion. I'm going to actually show you an article that I was featured in. By I think I mentioned before, by a company called Libsyn, Libsyn, which is the biggest company in the world that distributes podcasts. And they did a series on they're doing a series on featured Black podcasters, and they asked me to be interviewed first. So Dr. Tachi, thank you back. I'll do a little promo for Dr. Tachi, because she'll get mad if I don't give the promo. So Dr. Tachi hosts the livest program in the world online that features media, tech, and pop culture. It's called Mediascope. It's live most Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern time on Instagram Live. And then she comes and does the full conversation on Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, YouTube. I know this is also broadcast on a station in Barbados. So definitely. And Dr. Tachi's about 6-7 years now, past her 6-year anniversary. But if you want to know about media, tech, and pop culture, Dr. Tachi's a place and the person you need to go to. Remember, last two things, remember to give yourselves grace. Remember, yes, it's important to manage your time, but it's as important, if not more important, to manage your energy. Love, faith, and respect. God bless. Peace, well, keep the faith. Walk good.